Okay, so we're going to continue lesson 4-4, and this is still just a review from Algebra 1, and so this should be quite easy for you. If not, if this is your first time to see it and say you didn't cover this in Algebra 1, well, by the time I give you this big problem set, this should be very familiar and easy for you. So if you're still struggling at the end of these lessons, which is why I'm doing a daily quiz here to see who's getting it, who's not, where are we standing. You need to come speak with me and we'll arrange tutoring for you, which I've added to the wall over there. See the tutoring on the bulletin board there? And it's hanging on that hook. So there's a different teacher 2 days a week, usually Monday, Wednesday, or Monday, Thursday. It just varies from week to week. So that's who will go for your math tutoring. All right, let's get started. So problem 3, this is continuing from our previous lesson. Factoring ax squared plus bx plus c when a is not equal to 1. It says, or the absolute value of a is not equal to 1. What is the expression in factored form? So a says 2x squared plus 11x plus 12. So when we look at this, we think, oh, a has a 2 in it, and let's try to factor out that 2. Let me go. I've made it bigger right here. And you notice if you try to divide everything by 2 and just factor out the 2, it doesn't go evenly into 11, so we can't do that. So in this case, where it's unfactorable, you have to do 2 things. You have to identify your a, your b, and your c, which is 2, 11, and 12. And what we're going to do is still continue to do what I call our magic X, but we're going to have to do it with a times c. Well, a is 2, c is 12. So 2 times 12 is 24. Okay, so now we're going to go pretty much on a little different path here. So still we're going to be comparing it to our middle term, our b term. So we're going to say what 2 factors of 24 add up to be 11. Okay, so what 2 factors of 24 add up to be 11? Well, it's going to be 8 and 3. And what we're going to do is rewrite this b term right here as a sum of those 2 factors. So we'll make it 8x and 3x, right? Because 8x and 3x is 11x. So let's rewrite 11x as a sum as 8x and 3x. Okay, and let's carry down the first term and the last term. So all we've done here is we've rewritten this trinomial by replacing the middle term with those 2 factors that we calculated. Okay, same equation. Now that we've broken this down into more terms, we can divide it in half and look at each side separately. So let's do that. On this equation, can we factor anything out of this side? Yes, we can. We can factor out a 2x. And when I do, what's left over? An x plus 4. And now let's look at this side. What can we factor out of the right side? Well, we can factor out a 3. And what's left over? X plus 4. Now let's look at our 2 binomials. We've got an x plus 4 and an x plus 4. They're the same. So we can regroup this and restate it as 2x plus 3 times x plus 4. And that's our answer. Now how do we check and know if that's correct? We'll FOIL it back out and let's see if we get back to our original trinomial. So 2x times x is 2x squared. 2x times 4 is plus 8x plus 3x plus 12. And combine our like terms here, 11x, and carry down our first and last term. Does that match our first initial equation? 2x squared plus 11x plus 12? Yes, it does. So then that means our equation is correct. Our factor is correct. So our answer is 2x plus 3 times x plus 4. All right, are there any questions? Okay. Let's look at another one. The next one, it now puts a negative sign in both of these second and third terms. So let's look at a bigger version here. So we've got 4x squared minus 4x minus 3. So again, I'm going to see that I cannot factor a 4 out of all three of these terms. It's not going to work. So I'm going to have to revert to doing the a times c and regrouping. So this is called factoring by grouping, by the way. So my a times c value is going to be 4 times 3, which is 12. And I need to use negative 4 as my b value. Now, what two factors of 12? Excuse me, that's a negative 12 because we had 4 times negative 3. Sorry about that. So what two factors of negative 12 add up to be negative 4? So it would have to be negative 6 and a positive 2. So we'll rewrite those two middle terms as negative 6x plus 2x. So we're going to have 4x squared minus 6x plus 2x minus 3. And see, that's the same as negative 4x. We're just restating it. Now divide it in half. And I'm going to interject right here also that it doesn't matter. A lot of students ask, well, how do you know which one to put first, the 2x or the negative 6x? Well, let's work it both ways. I'll solve it over here as 4x squared plus 2x minus 6x minus 3. So I'll work that one in just a minute. So let's work this one first. Whoa. There we go. And what can I factor out? A 2x. And what's left over? A 2x minus 3. And there's nothing to factor out on this side, so we'll just leave it as a, we can factor out a 1, right? 2x minus 3. So when there's nothing to factor out, make sure you put it in parentheses and put a plus 1 out there. Okay. Now compare your two binomials, 2x minus 3, 2x minus 3, they're the same, so we can regroup. 2x plus 1 times 2x minus 3. And that's our answer. Now, you wouldn't box that until you did your check, okay, because you're not certain if that's our answer or not. Now let's work this other side. All right, now to factor out on this side, I'm going to factor out a 2x, and what's left is a 2x plus 1. And over on this side, I can factor out a negative 3, and that's going to be a x minus 1. Oops, plus 1, excuse me. And we check, that's a 2x plus 1, so sorry. Okay, so 2x plus 1, check both your binomials, and they're the same, so you can rewrite it as 2x minus 3 times 2x plus 1. Okay. And when you compare these, it's just the same thing, but the binomials are reversed. See, 2x plus 1, 2x plus 1, 2x minus 3, 2x minus 3. So it doesn't matter which one you put first, in the end your answer will be the same. Are there any questions? Okay, very good. Now let's look at the things I had you copy for your bell work today about a perfect square trinomial. A perfect square trinomial is just a trinomial that is the square of a binomial. So if we have a binomial squared, just let me actually work one here. If I had x plus 2 squared. There's a binomial squared. What does that equal? X plus 2 times x plus 2. And if we FOIL that out, we're going to get x squared plus 2x plus 2x plus 4. And combine your like terms to a 4x. So we've got x squared plus 4x plus 4. Right? So what does that look like? Up here they say it's going to be a squared and a b squared on the end. Well, let's look. Is that a perfect square? Is 4 a perfect square of a number? Yes, it's 2 squared. And how about x squared? Is that a perfect square of a number? Yes, it's a perfect square of x. So we've got our a squared and our b squared. Now our middle term is supposed to be 2ab. So we're going to let x squared be a squared and 2 squared be b. So a is equal to x and b is equal to 2. So if we have a 2ab, that means we're going to have, if a is x and b is 2, a times b is 2x. And 2x times 2 is 4x. So that does match our pattern here. See, we've got a 4x. So we've got an a squared plus 2ab plus b squared. And because we meet those rules, we can say that's a perfect square trinomial. Now the only difference when you're using the negative is it'll only be on the second term, in the middle term. And if that's there, then you're going to have a minus in your answer. So if you recognize that if you've got an a squared plus a 2ab plus b squared, you're going to say, well, that factors out 2a plus b squared. And if you see the same thing but with the minus, then you're going to say, well, it's a minus b squared. So let's work a couple of those and see how those work. So it says, what is the factored form of this? Well, we could start factoring a 4 out of everything and start solving, but right away I realized 4x squared is a perfect square. And this is quicker, right? And I notice that 36 is a perfect square. So I've got an a squared and a b squared. So that means my a is 2x because 4x squared is just 2x squared. And my b must be a 6 because 6 squared is 36. Now, 2ab, we've got to see if that middle term equals 2ab. So what is a times b? 2x times 6 is 12x. So there's your a times b. Now double it. 12 times 2 is 24. And it is 24x. So this checks out to be our formula. So we know our a is 2x and our b is 6. So it checks out to be a perfect square trinomial. So now that we see that it's a perfect square trinomial, we can just say, well, my factored form is just 2x minus 6 because we've got a negative squared. And that's all there is to it. So once you realize you've got a perfect square to begin with and to end with, then multiply them together, multiply those roots together, double it, and see if it matches your middle term. If it does, it's just going to be the a minus b squared. If you're not sure of your answer, FOIL it back out. 2x minus 6 times 2x minus 6. Okay, and I'm not going to do that for time's sake, but it would check back out to this original equation, trinomial. Any questions on that one? Again, this is just from Algebra 1. Let's do one more. It says, what is 64x squared minus 16x plus 1 in factored form? Well, 64x squared is a square of 8x, right? And 1 is just a square of 1. So our a is 8x and our b is 1. So multiply them together and double it. 8x doubled is 16x. Does that match our middle term? Yes, it does. Then this is a perfect square trinomial. So we can say it's got the negative sign, so we know it's going to be a minus b squared. So it's going to be 8x minus 1 squared. And that's your answer. Any questions? All right, let's move on to the other one. How to find the difference of two squares, factoring a difference of two squares. Well, how do you know if you've got a difference of two squares? Well, if you have a number squared minus a number squared, well, that is a difference, being the minus, of two squares. A squared minus b squared. And when you find that you've got that, then you could say the answer is just going to be a plus b times a minus b. So if I have x squared minus 25, well, x squared is just a square of x, so that's my a. And 25 is just a square of 5, so that's my b. So I've got a difference of two squares, so it's just going to be x plus 5 times x minus 5, and I'm done. Okay? So now let's put that to use. What is 25 x squared minus 49 in factored form? So here it is, nice and big. So we're going to look, is that a perfect square? Yes, it is. Of what? 5x. Is this a perfect square? Yes, it is. Of what? 7. So that means my a is 5x and my b is 7. So my factored form is going to be equal to 5x plus 7 times 5x minus 7. And I'm done. Let's check this out. Let's go ahead and check one and just watch what happens for grins. Let's FOIL it out. So we're going to have 25x squared and then minus 35x plus 35x minus 49. Well, plus 35 minus 35, that goes to 0. And what are we left with? A squared minus b squared. 25x squared minus 49, what we started with. So do you see how that factorization works? And that rule works so easy for us? It's sort of a shortcut. Any questions on that? Okay, so then your homework tonight will be the rest of this assignment, 23 all the way through, whoops, it's another class, sorry, 37, 38, 39. So 23 through 39, you're going to work all of those. Okay. And that'll be due when you come in tomorrow. Any questions about your homework? Okay, so it's Khan Academy Day. So we're going to do some reiteration here. We're going to quiz again on some basic factoring. And then I've got 2 videos for you to watch about grouping, what we just did. So it's more reinforcement of what we've just done. So I want you to log on to your Khan Academy and go to your Algebra 2 class. And I've done a warm-up for you. And then 2 videos, Intro to Grouping and Factoring Quadratics by Grouping. So if you don't have headphones, you're going to have to pause, or mute your sound and turn on closed captions and just read it. There's not enough time to check out headphones today. So I want you to definitely start with the warm-up and be careful about, someone said you have to click the negative sign because if you type it in, it counts it wrong. And I don't know if that's just someone who made an error, if that's a truth or a half-truth, like they thought it was true, but it was really just something else. So just be careful and let me know if you notice anything buggy like that. Okay? So this is just going to be 4 questions, and that's a quiz. So it should be super duper easy than the 2 videos. Okay? So you have 15 minutes, and when you finish all that, then you can go back to your homework. All right? Any questions? All right. Thank you. And that concludes our lesson today.